Because Nancy Pelosi, for example, she is one of the richest congressional members that we have. Her wealth is in excess of $100 million. And so one would think, aren't you rich enough, Nancy? But apparently not so much.
Paul Pelosi's been in the news for buying, 20,000 shares of a tech stock, and that's now worth millions of dollars. And his wife, Nancy, worked on finalizing a bill that would bring that company contracts. Anyway, I find all of this interesting. I want you, as best you can, to unpack it for me and my audience, what it means and what we should think about all this.
Yeah, and when I come to stories like this, first of all, thank you for having me back on your show. I truly appreciate it. But when I come to stories like this, I cannot help but to remember who I am and where I came from. I grew up on a pig farm. I grew up very impoverished. I saw my family waking up very early, going to bed very late, and they struggled, and we grew up extremely poor. I think I've mentioned on your show already that I grew up in a home with no insulation, no running water, an outhouse in the back and a well on the side. And although I am a long way from where I started, I remember, and I take my family back, and I see how people are living. And when I come to stories like this, where you have people who are clearly taking advantage of the system, the haves and the have-nots, and that gap continues to widen. And then as I look forward to what is awaiting us as an American people, it's not good. There are no solutions to these gas prices. There are no solutions to this inflation. There's no solution to a whole host of issues. And so the misery index for Americans are only going to rise. And then you come to something like this, right? Because Nancy Pelosi, for example, she is one of the richest congressional members that we have. Her wealth is in excess of $100 million. And so one would think, aren't you rich enough, Nancy? But apparently not so much. So in early January is when I first started paying attention more so. She and her husband reported that they cashed in over $30 million in profits from their tech stocks, right? And tech stocks is one of the areas that falls under Nancy Pelosi's jurisdiction. She is responsible for regulating those particular industries. And if you remember, prior to the beginning of this year, we saw the Biden White House colluding and speaking very openly about their collusion with the tech industry. And then you look at Congress waiting for them to rein these tech industries in and wondering why they're not doing anything. Why was Nancy Pelosi not doing anything to rein in these tech industries? And then we see in early January, her and her husband just in one quarter reported over $30 million in profits from those same tech companies. So perhaps there's an insidious relationship. And then, as I pointed out to you in Twitter, we see that her husband just loaded up on about $5 million worth of a stock called NVIDIA. It is a semiconductor. It falls in the semiconductor industry. And this industry stands to get about $52 billion of a boom, as well as tax credits coming out of this Congress as early as today. It can come out today. They're certainly trying to get it passed before the end of their recess at the end of August. And so this is a bill that, according to both sides of the political aisle, it is very likely to happen. And so to see her husband once more taking advantage of what appears to be insider trading, stocking up, loading up on about $5 million worth of shares in a particular stock that stands to benefit significantly. And then you see Nancy Pelosi tweeting out information about this particular area that this company falls into. It's just a whole lot of insidious behaviors, and I want to put a spotlight on it.